If you're like me and a lot of other people, you might be great at building software and products and you want to be an entrepreneur, but it seems a little scary and daunting. In today's episode, we're talking with James Green at Don't Quit Ventures about how he helps other founders do this exact thing. And we talk about a lot of the common problems and pitfalls that people like ourselves fall into and how to overcome them. And I'll tell you, the number one thing is learning to do sales. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's all about sales. Check out today's episode. To survive and thrive, you must adopt a product-driven mindset. And we're back for another episode of Product Driven. Today, I'm with James Green, who is general partner, co-founder of the DQ Ventures Fund. His fund helps find aspiring entrepreneurs who have a great idea and help them bring that business to life as we'll call it minimal viable business, not just the product itself. James is all about helping people have ideas, turn them into a business. And I thought this would be a great topic today for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of tech people like myself have a lot of ideas, want to start a business. We don't know what to do. Where do we start? James helps people navigate through this. So it's a great conversation. So James, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you.
You've been an entrepreneur for a long time, invested in a lot of companies. I love what you're doing now, helping entrepreneurs, or maybe they're not even entrepreneurs. They're people that have a great idea, but they don't necessarily know how to be an entrepreneur or don't know what to do. And I think that's what we can talk about today, which would be great. But I think as a software engineer background myself, and we've lived over this last 25-year period as sort of the tech revolution, right? Like it's over the last 25 years, it's never been a better time. If you know how to build software, like you could go start a business, right? It's almost like its own gold rush. But the problem is a lot of us that are software engineers aren't necessarily business people. Like we don't know how to run a business. We don't know how to do sales. We don't know how to do marketing. Like we just know we can build things. So James, what is your advice for somebody like me that is like that? It's like I got an idea, but I have no idea how to turn this into a business.
Okay, sure. So I think the first thing I would say is that starting a business, entrepreneurship, is very different in reality to how most people imagine it is going to be. I think people imagine that you spend a lot of time thinking things up and strategizing, creating wonderful products. And then when you do that, customers will come flooding through the gates looking to spend money with you, and you can go on and create more products and more value. Actually, entrepreneurship is basically sales. I would say, unless you are in the minority of businesses where you build something that people do come to organically, that grows virally, like a Facebook or an Instagram, for example. But in most cases, and certainly in most of the cases of businesses that we're building, 90% of the job is creating some kind of value proposition and finding somebody who wants that value. And that is basically selling. And so I would say if you're not comfortable selling or with the idea of selling something, then you probably shouldn't become an entrepreneur, because that really is the job. Not necessarily long term. You can certainly outsource that to or delegate that to a team later on. But it's not. I think one popular misconception is that you can just hire someone and they'll sell your product for you. But it never works. I've never seen that work in
James,
my
hold
last
on a
15
second.
years.
I read TechCrunch and you're wrong. The way that you do this is you go to Startup Weekend, you build the product over a weekend. On Monday, you use AI to set up some kind of marketing website. On Tuesday, you make one post on Twitter and LinkedIn, and the next day you go viral. On Thursday, you raise $10 million in a Series A. Like, that's how you do this, James.
I'm sure it has happened. Maybe once in every several thousand times. Yeah.
At least that's what people believe. Like, that's what you read on TechCrunch and all these places. It sounds that easy.
No, unfortunately,
but it's really
not. It's not. And I think the bit that people don't do is talk to their customers and their potential customers. And they don't. The kind of popular jargon is they don't validate their ideas. So they have an idea, they think that's cool, and if they're really unlucky, then nobody warns them off, and they go away and they invest several tens, if not hundreds of thousands of their own money or other people's money building the product, and then finally unleash that on the unsuspecting market and find out that actually nobody wants it.
So on this podcast, on Product Driven, we talk a lot about that problem, and it's not even an issue with just startups. It's even an issue with existing companies that don't talk to their customers, that
Yeah.
don't listen to the market. Like they're still just in a cubicle in a dark corner somewhere writing code and shipping it, not even telling anybody that they shipped the code either, and never talking to customers. Um, and bigger companies can sort of get away with that because they have a sales team that is out there selling whatever the crap is that they do.
Yeah.
But for an early stage startup, like it's just death.
Yeah.
As you said earlier, 90% of the business is sales. If you want to be the CEO, you better be good at sales. And I had to learn this lesson the hard way when I founded Stackify, which was in like 2012. My background is more of the CTO. I'm the idea guy, engineer. That's my background, not a salesperson.
Yeah.
And learned that the hard way. Hired a salesperson, tried to do a lot of marketing, tried to do all the things, but it was brutal. It was very difficult, and it was a hard lesson.
Yeah. I think that's probably that's the work that we do with our founders. Because the founders that come to us, they're generally first time entrepreneurs. They're usually from a profession, so they know a niche, they know a sector. Perhaps they've identified a problem that they believe needs fixing. But then most of the work that we do with them is getting them through that validation funnel, going from this sounds like a cool idea to I've actually got a list of 20 people who have told me they are going to pay for this. In fact, I've got some of their money
There we go.
already. And that's the hard bit. And that's the hard bit for us. That's the hard bit for everyone. Unless you get lucky and you get it right first time. But that almost never happens.
Are most of the people that are coming to you technical or non-technical founders?
We have a mixture, actually. So we have non-technical founders who come to us and say, I know what I'm doing, I just don't know how to build the product. I bet you hear
Yeah.
this quite a lot. But then we have other people saying, I know how to build the product, but I don't know how to go to market. Um, so my team's actually predominantly go to market. We've got 6 full-time people and then some consultants outside that. And we're all in the how do we get this in the hands of a paying customer skill set. If we have somebody who comes to us that needs tech help, then we use one of our portfolio companies, which is they specialize in building MVPs for non-technical
Yeah.
founders. And it's probably not to the level that you guys do and your audience does. This is all no code. Some of our MVPs would not class as software at all. We've got a Google Sheet with some ASP scripts and MailChimp integrated with I don't know Glide as a front end. We've got all sorts of little hacks to
Whatever
try
it
and fake
takes,
it.
if that's all it takes and it works.
Sure. Yeah. If
So let me ask you this. So
go.
when you have these founders coming to you that need your help, some of them are technical, some of them are not. Which ones do you see are most likely to succeed? The technical ones or the non-technical ones? The ones that have they know how to sell this thing but they don't have the product, or the ones who know how to build the product but don't know how to sell it? Who is the most successful from your cohorts?
Well, it's very clear in our cohorts that it's the non-technical founders who are the most successful. But
Okay.
I think that's doing the technical ones a bit of a disservice because we only have 2 technical founders out of the 19. So
Okay.
so it's not so many. And actually, both of those have a very good product. But I think they both can sell. But the product is a lot more complex in their case than some of the other businesses.
Wait
Where
a second. We engineers make things complicated?
I know,
What are you
believe
talking
it or
about?
not, it happens sometimes. But these are some of the non-technical founders. They're prepared to sell whatever the customer wants to start off with, and then they'll work out what the product needs to develop into later. Whereas I think the technical founders, they've got a very clear vision for the product, and then they try and find a home for that product. So slightly different approach.
But that's the problem we have. That's one of the core things we talk about here on this channel all the time is you can't do that. You can't sit in a vacuum, build the product, and then go find somebody who wants it.
No. Because
Like, it
probably there's
doesn't
no one.
work that way, right?
No.
You can start with the idea. You're like, hey, I want to solve a problem in this industry, in this space, in this thing, and I've got a general thesis that I can help build something in this case. Now I need to go figure out exactly who needs it, who to sell it, and exactly what they need. Like, that works. Like, you can do that, right? Like, I have some conviction and passion for this problem. I need to go find customers, and they'll help guide me to where I need to go. But if you don't do that working with the customers part of it,
Yeah.
like, that's the struggle, because otherwise you're forever just like, I built a product and I built a website and I'm just waiting for people to show up
That's
and
right.
like hoping they want exactly this weird Frankenstein thing that I built.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
And you can go
that's the
through a lot
struggle.
of you can go through a lot of sales and marketing people thinking that they're just no good, but actually it's not them that's no good. It's the match between the value proposition and the customer's expectations. So is
Well,
it Mark Andreessen said that you've got to fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And I think
yeah.
maybe that's something that engineers struggle with more than non-technical founders because they love their solution. I don't know. I don't know if that's fair. You'd know them better than me.
It's absolutely the case, and here's why. I talk to other founder slash CTOs all the time, and for them, it's also just even a leadership problem. Like, if you're the CTO and you're running a small team, the struggle we have is context switching. Even myself, by default, I'm a software engineer. I'm a problem solver. So if you ask me, what do I want to do today? Or if I have nothing to do today, what am I naturally going to gravitate towards?
Yeah, I
Solving
guess
some
solving a
problem,
problem. Yeah.
engineering something, right? It's not going to do sales and cold calling people and going on LinkedIn and messaging people and doing all this stuff. Like, that's not in my DNA. It doesn't mean I don't do it or I can't do it, but it's not my default state of being. I want to go engineer and solve something. Now, the way I solve that is I don't engineer anything. So I don't do the context switching. So because I'm not writing code, I'm not doing engineering, I don't have to context switch back and forth, which, let me tell you, for me is brutal. Like, I
Really?
can't do it. Like, when I'm trying to write code, I'm like a dog on a bone. That's all I can think about all day, all night. I'm thinking about, oh, I want to solve this thing. I'm doing this thing. I want to build this. I'm excited about it. It's like I bought something at IKEA or I'm putting a Lego set together. Like, until I finish that, I can't do anything else. Like, that's the way the mind works for us engineers. That context switching is brutal. Like, imagine building, an IKEA desk halfway and then stopping
Yeah.
to go sell something. You're like, I can't, no. But the problem when you're building software is the desk never gets done. You never finish the desk. So that's why it's so hard for us. At least that's my perspective of it. That's how I feel.
But I would say that when I talk about entrepreneurship being selling, I actually think that selling is also not quite what people think it is. So selling is actually listening. It's not speaking. If you're a good salesperson, you're listening 80% of the time. And I think
I
that
love that.
and I think that is actually problem solving as well. In the same way, maybe that would appeal to your software developer audience, that you're not giving up the problem solving part of your job. You're just solving the problem by really understanding what that problem is. And I think most importantly, how is the person solving the problem now? And even though you might think they don't have a solution, somehow they're solving the problem. It might be that
They've got a spreadsheet.
yeah, exactly. They've got a
They've got
spreadsheet
something.
or they're writing things
Yeah.
down. They have a solution. So how do you make that solution a little bit better and remove the friction from
Yeah.
going from A to B rather than all the way to Z to your wonderful flashy lights, all-in-one
Yep.
solution that they can pay an annual subscription for?
I think that is fantastic advice. And the other advice I always give software developers that don't like to do sales, like the technical founders that would come to your platform, through your system there, is don't be scared to go talk to people about what you've built. Like, just think about, you're going to show people what you're built and you're excited about it. Like, I built this thing and I just want to go tell people about this cool thing that I built.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't want to do that? Like, if I built the IKEA desk, my family comes around and be like, look at the desk I made. Aren't you proud of me? I made this cool desk, right? Just go do that. Just go talk to people. Even if it's on LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn and be like, I built this thing. Here's
Yeah.
why I built this thing. Just
Yeah.
go tell people about what you're excited, and honestly, other people will be excited because you're excited.
I think that's
Even if they
true.
look at your IKEA desk and are like, you did it wrong, but people will be excited because you're excited.
Well, I think people avoid that because they don't that they fear being told that their idea was no good and that it doesn't
Yeah.
work. But that's what you want. You want someone to tell you it's no good, and you want to understand why it's no good, so then you can develop further. And I think another thing to add to what you just said is that when you sell, your sales is a horrible word. It sounds like you're trying to force someone to take something that they don't want. But it's not that at all. Sales is actually trying to figure out what they do want. And so you just take them your solution and you say, can you just tell me what you think of this? It could be bad, it could be good. You're not asking them to buy it. You're just saying, what do you think? And
Yeah.
if they say, do you know what, that's so cool, I would like that, but can you just turn this bit upside down and make that work like that? And then I'd love to use that. Then you got a sale and you never had to sell anything.
That's it. It's that easy.
It
You just
can
listen
be.
to people.
It can be, yeah.
But really, it is. I mean, like, I talk to other entrepreneurs and business people all the time. And I think one of my unique skills is being able to talk to them, understand their problems.
Yeah.
And then in my head, I can envision, like, okay, well, here's how I'd build a product to go solve that, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what's great about really good engineers if you have that trait. It's like you go talk to people, talk to business people, talk to people in an industry that very specific problems, right? And I'm sure these are the kinds of people you like coming through your system.
Yeah.
Like vertical companies, vertical ideas, very niche, very unique. Just go find you've got to talk to those people that have those kinds of problems. And if you're a technical person, you can be like, you know what, I can solve that. So if you know how to sell it, I can help build it, and we can start a business. Like that's how I started 3 of my 4 companies. I was the technical co-founder. They were not even my ideas, but I could talk to other people and say, hey, I can help you.
Yeah. And I think something else that maybe technical founders don't realize is a strength is that they actually tend to make really good salespeople once they get over that initial obstacle and inertia. And I think that's because nobody wants to be sold to. Nobody wants the slick, suited and booted sales guy to come and convince them to buy something they don't want. But if you can have a sales meeting, which is basically just a conversation, where you're trying to find out what the problem is, and so you can help that person by solving their problem, that can be a really positive conversation and not feel like sales at all. And so the 2 technical founders that we've got in our or that have been through DQ Ventures, one has been through and one is going through. They're both excellent at having those conversations. They really are excellent. What they're not very good at is setting those conversations up. But that's what they've got us for. So we help them with the lead generation and to get them in the room with the right people. But then when it comes to actually discussing the problem, they do all the talking, because once they're there and they're discussing a problem, then it becomes exciting and enjoyable. And they tend to be good at that.
So I want to talk more about taking the leap and becoming an entrepreneur. So we've talked a lot about starting a business and some of the common challenges and stuff. But one of the things that you guys really preach is somebody who has a great idea that they should keep their day job as long as possible, right? And they work with you guys. You guys help them bring that business to life. Tell us more about that strategy and why you guys really advocate for this strategy.
Okay. So currently I would say there are 2 ways to start a company. You either stay in your job and then build something on the side, or you give up your job and you do it with all the time and energy that you have available. There
And
isn't
you probably
really,
have to raise capital.
well, unless you have enough wealth to fund it yourself, then yeah. But those are the two different options. And I think the problem with the second one, as you say, is you need capital. So you either burn through your personal savings, or you have to go and raise capital from someone else and convince them to write you $1 million check. The problem with the first one is that you've got to go to the day job, and then you've got to come home, you've got to feed your children and live your life. And there isn't that much time. And it's very difficult to make something work when you haven't got much time to put into it. So we see ourselves as a third option, which is stay in your job, work on it part-time, and then have a team like us to do the day-to-day and get things going while you're focusing on your day job and continuing to earn your salary. And why we think that's important is that, particularly if you're midway through your career, I'm 49 now, and I was in my 40s when we started this, and a lot of my peers were coming to me as the startup guy in our network and saying, I've got 20 more years of corporate life left. I don't want another 20 years of this BS to put up with. Or on the other side of that coin, they were saying, I've only got 20 more years left. I feel like I have more to give than just working this day job and slugging my guts out for the man. I want a sense of ownership. I want to create something. And so I totally understand why people have that motivation. But by the time you're at that stage of life, you really can't afford to mess it up because I mean, we're all living longer, but you've got certain responsibilities usually by that time in life. Maybe you bought a house or you've got a family to support. And they're your key earning years. You've never earned as much in your life. And do you really want to give that up for 10 years to try and get something off the ground that may or may not survive? So we believe passionately that you should de-risk entrepreneurship if you are a mid-career professional, and give yourselves the
I mean, the
chance to
reality
do.
is we know like 95% of tech companies, startups fail, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, as much as we love it when we see entrepreneurs go all in, they sell the house, they quit their job, they do all this stuff, like that all sounds great, but we also know there's a 95% or whatever chance it's going to fail. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'm a huge fan of the entrepreneurs keeping that day job for as long as possible. And a lot of people, a lot of tech people too, they're like, hey, they're a CTO or a manager or something in a company, and they make a lot of money. Like they make 150, 200,000
yeah,
in US dollars a year. It's like, that's a lot of money. Like keep that job. And if you need to, you could hire an offshore developer to help you, a marketing person, some assistant or whatever. Like keep your big salary, but use a little bit of that salary to fund, getting some help doing some various things.
yeah.
Versus if you quit, like now you have like no source of income to hire and do, little things here, but, lower your expenses, for your personal life if you can, but keep that big salary as long as you can.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Well, I've been an angel investor since 2012, fairly consistently, and I've seen some pretty horrific results of. I can think of a technical guy who was working at SAP. He was earning 300K a year, doing absolutely crushing it, having a great life. Gave that up to start his own startup, which I invested in. He did that for 10 years, and just at the end of last year, he shut that down and ended up with nothing. And for many of those years, he'd not even paid himself a salary, trying to keep things going. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's basically a disaster. There's no other way to look at it. He's given up $3 million of salary in order to start a company that has ended up paying him out nothing. And there's no way to shine a light on that. There's a lot of learning, and I'm sure he's kind of wiser, but that's a very expensive lesson.
Well, I love what you guys are doing, and I think this has been a great topic today. And, my first company I started in 2003. I was only 22 years old, and it was started as like a side project thing for me. And I worked my full-time job for as long as possible. I was working in a medical lab as a software developer at that time. It was like nights and weekends, worked around the clock doing it. Eventually, I went to my boss, and I told my boss all along kind of what I was doing. He didn't care. And convinced him to let me work from 6 in the morning to noon every day. I cut my hours to 30 hours a week, and he let me do that. And I'd go home after noon and work basically till bedtime every day.
Cool.
And I kept that job for as long as possible. And I'm a huge fan of that model, and sort of, we never raised any capital either. It was a bootstrap business all the way to 35 million a year in revenue, bootstrapped the whole way.
Nice.
And I mean, so many people do that though. They think that they're going to quit their job, and then they got to go raise a whole bunch of venture capital to not only pay themselves, but like they just start down the path immediately of like a whole lot of expenses. So, huge fan of what you're doing. If somebody is listening right now and wants to learn more about your guys' program, how would they potentially apply? How would they know if they were a good fit? Or do you just have other resources that people could learn from? Even if they don't, even if they're not a good fit, but do you have like other materials out there they could learn from if they want to go down this journey?
Yeah, I mean, follow me on LinkedIn. If you, I try to post learnings from our portfolio companies and from previous successes and failures that we've had. I write a lot of blogs. So our website is dqventures.com. DQ stands for Don't Quit, by the way.
I thought it was Dairy Queen.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from people your side of the Atlantic. We don't have Dairy Queen in England and Sweden, so
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it's Don't Quit.
I like that. Don't quit. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. And if you have an idea and you want some support or you don't know how to make that first step, then reach out. We have a pretty exhaustive list of resources on our website, and we'd love to hear from anyone.
All right. Well, thanks again for doing this again. This was James Green. You're on LinkedIn. You put a lot of great content on LinkedIn. That's how we connected. So definitely recommend following you on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, take care. Thanks for tuning into Product Driven today. If you're passionate about building user-centric tech products, join over 30,000 tech leaders who receive the Product Driven newsletter directly in their inbox every week. Visit fullscaleteam.com/newsletter to sign up today for our newsletter. You can also view all of our episodes on YouTube and join over 50,000 others. And please follow me, Matt Watson, on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.